What is up, gang? It is I, Carlton Flowers, your crypto pro.
Yay!
And today we are going to talk about the FedNow program and the possibility of an upcoming CBDC in the United States. And I'm going to share with you my thoughts and opinion, and plus my observations about big changes like this that have happened in my life. I just spent the last 20 minutes recording this very video, and the microphone was not on. I want to kick the computer.
Arr!
But I guess it was good practice because now I've collected all my thoughts and I can share with you a more organized version of what I rambled on for the last 20 minutes. Well, a lot of you have been asking me to share about what I think about the upcoming FedNow program. Well, actually, it is live because it went live last Thursday. And to also shed light on what I think about the possibilities of a CBDC in the United States. All right, so right now, everyone in the crypto space especially are up at arms about the launching of the FedNow program, as they believe and are fearful that this is going to take away our rights and change life as we know it. So I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinion from the viewpoint of somebody who is 55 years old. I've seen a lot of change in my lifetime, and I've been through times where there were huge conspiracy theories about the end of the world, humanity, and the removal of our rights and freedoms as U.S. citizens. I'll bring it all full circle as it relates to the FedNow program. So just stick with me and enjoy this. And in the end, I will share with you what my fear level is on a scale of 1 to 10 based on our now functional FedNow program. Okay, well, I can tell you this, that the earliest time that I can remember of understanding and studying finance would take me back to grade school in the 70s. And I've seen money come a long way. Back in the 70s, we had paper money. And we had ledgers at the banks that were filled in and completed with an ink pen and paper. So when you went to the bank and you made a deposit, they would fill in that information on a paper ledger to add those funds into your account. And then at nighttime, the accountants would balance the books and settle that ledger to make sure that everyone's accounts have been updated and that the bank's accounts and the vaults would be updated to reflect how much money they had and how much money that they owed. All of the debts and all of the credits had to be settled. Now, whenever you sent money from one bank to another back then in the days of a paper ledger, we had to wait a long time. So if you wanted to send money overseas or to a bank across the country, we had to wait for a letter to be sent certifying that the deposit was made to cover the transfer and that the bank who received it was going to send it to the bank on the other end. So the U.S. mail would have to deliver a letter to the bank that was going to receive that money, and they would enter that transaction into their ledger, and then they would wait until the funds were received and the amount was settled. Then we went from paper ledgers to computers. Okay, now the paper ledgers might not have really taken place by the time I was in grade school. We did have Cobalt computers, but we did have a lot of recording of paper ledgers before the information was typed into those computers. So the system that we used for banking, for accounting back in the 70s was based on a programming language called Cobalt. And that COBOL programming language was used all the way throughout the 80s, 90s, and straight up to the year 2000. And we arrived at the year 1999 where it still took days for transactions to settle. And when you put a check in the bank back in the 90s, you couldn't take that money out immediately unless it was a certified check from the government. And that was because the bank had to wait and ensure that when that check was sent to the other bank from where it was drawn, that they had the money and they could settle the transaction. It took 2 to 3 days to settle transactions when sending money from one bank to another. Now, I do remember that sometimes when you would deposit a check, if it wasn't a personal check, they would let you take a certain percentage. Like you could withdraw 20% of that deposit right away because the bank was taking a risk on waiting until the transaction settled. Okay? That's why it takes so long for transactions to take place. So when we were in the year 1999, there was a big scare and a huge conspiracy theory about the end of life as we would know it. And if you haven't guessed it, it was called Y2K. Y2K was a scare because the old COBOL system, the COBOL programming language, and the databases that were using that language, they used a 2-digit date format. So 1999 was just entered as 99. But if we continued on with that system, 00 could have meant 1900. So all of those databases had to be upgraded to 4-digit date format or the world was going to implode. So there were conspiracy theories abounding that the world was going to end, life would be over as we know it, and everything would be chaos and disaster. Electrical companies would shut down. The water companies were going to shut down. There would be a blackout and there would be just calamity, just craziness going on. And we would have to wait until a restructuring of the entire financial system. Well, guess what? We woke up the next morning and nothing happened. In fact, there were even conspiracy theories stating that the rapture was going to happen and that it was the end of life as we knew it. And we were entering into the Great Tribulation. So during that time, after we all woke up the next morning and nothing happened, the next conspiracy theory jumped up because people thought, oh, well, wait a minute. This wasn't actually the end of the millennium. That happens at the end of the year 2000. So then we all sat up again on New Year's Eve because the year 2001 was supposed to be the end of the world when the rapture happened and life would end as we know it. Well, I woke up that morning and nothing happened. I also remember when credit cards first started and you had to clack a little machine that would take a physical imprint onto copy paper for that transaction. And then the institution or the facility that you were purchasing something at would take that sheet of paper and they would send it to the bank and they would enter that amount into a ledger and knock down the books. And that's how we did things with the credit cards that were not electronic. And during that time, many people would overspend their credit cards because it took too long to knock down the books before you overspent your limit. Well, they invented the electronic transaction for credit cards. And then here come the conspiracy theories. Life is over as we know it because now we have electronic transactions which can be tracked by the government. You know what? People even said that it was the mark of the beast. They said, okay, the government tracks us by our social security number. They've got our driver's license number, and now we have credit cards with electronic transactions that are connected to our driver's license number and our social security number. Life is over. That's it. It's the end of the world. We're going to have a totalitarian system because the government will be able to run every aspect of our lives. Why? Because the majority of spending that was going on was with these credit cards. Well, since then, I've used a lot of credit cards. I've been deep in debt and have stepped out of debt, gone back in and out several times. And the government has not taken away my rights. Well, fast forward to today, and we have the FedNow program. Now, while it sounds super scary, the FedNow program is actually long overdue. The ability for the feds to send you a stimulus check, and you would get that check in the mail and go deposit it at the bank, which they would let you have that money right away because it was trusted from the government, and the bank was really lending you that money until the transaction settled. They will now be able to send you your STEMI check electronically, and you can spend it right away because it settles in a matter of seconds. That's because the FedNow program is built on an infrastructure that was copied, so they say, from the XRP blockchain. Some say that they copied the code line for line. That's why you had all these conspiracy theories that XRP was going to be the infrastructure, the substructure of the FedNow program, which, as it turns out, it is not, or at least hasn't been said so to this day. So the FedNow program brings the federal government up to speed from what we have already seen happen years ago in the financial system, where transactions can be instantly verified and cleared. All right? Now, like I said, this is something that could have happened years ago because the technology was there, but the wheels of government turn very slowly. Okay? While we watched typewriters go to electronic typewriters, which moved on to word processors and then computers and then the internet, the government has not kept up with the speed of change with technology. So now we have these instant transactions. And some say that the FedNow program lays the framework for the ability of the government to institute a CBDC, or central bank digital currency. Now, the fear of a CBDC is pretty legit, because that means the federal government will be able to track everything you do, including mowing your neighbor's lawn for $20 and then paying you with electronic money. Now they can tax you on that. Plus, they say that the federal government will be able to control what you can spend your money on. Let's say, for instance, there's a new STEMI program. They give everybody $1,000 of free STEMI money, but they put a condition on that stimulus check. They say you got to spend this within 90 days, and it has to be on food, groceries, and utilities because they're trying to stimulate that sector of the economy. And if you don't spend it in the 90 days, it disappears. They also say that if you are, say, overweight and unhealthy, they can restrict what you can spend your CBDCs on. So when you go to the grocery store and you want to buy that Snickers bar, the clerk will tell you, I'm sorry, but you're not approved for this transaction because you have high cholesterol, you're overweight, you have hypertension, and they've banned you from buying candy. Let's say you're on Obamacare and you want to buy your cigarettes, and you get to the cash register only to find out that the government has placed code in your account that says this person cannot buy cigarettes because they're on Obamacare and they're a risk of cancer that is involved. So there are ways that the government can control the way we spend money if there is a CBDC that is instituted, which can come right on the back of the FedNow program. Now, am I scared? Am I fearful of life ending as we know it and the United States becoming a totalitarian regime? No, I'm not. I'm a skeptic. Now, there are certain states like Florida and Missouri and other conservative states that like their guns and they stand by their states' rights, where the government, the feds, cannot overpower the state's ability to make certain laws and rules about how they want to live and enjoy their freedoms independently of the federal government. And these states have passed a law against instituting a CBDC. So the state of Florida has said, you're not coming here with a CBDC. You will not prevent our residents of this state from purchasing their Snickers bars and their cigarettes. So get out of here with that totalitarian control, federal government. Now, I can tell you that in the past, there have been great calamities because of the battle between the federal government and states via states' rights. The last time was the Civil War, where the federal government wanted to end the institution of slavery, and they overrode states' rights and the South's ability to continue owning, selling slaves through the Civil War. They did it by force. Now, the feds did take control, but I'm kind of glad in that particular situation that they did override those states and do what was best. But they did not remove states' rights altogether. And we still have battles in individual states where they fight against the federal government, which includes the state of Florida and others passing laws against CBDCs. So while it is possible that they could institute the CBDC on the back of the FedNow program, am I afraid of the United States becoming a totalitarian country, taking away my rights to buy my Snickers bars and do what I want? Well, they are going to give the IRS just another little bit of power to control us. But let's think about this for a minute. There's 350 million some odd people in the United States. The government can't keep up with what they have, and they're the most inefficient business, period, that exists. When it comes to waste, our federal government is number one. So how in the world do you think that the government is going to be able to control the lives of 350 million people with their CBDC? What are they going to do? Build concentration camps all over the country? Do you think that they're going to win the battle and eliminate states' rights? Well, maybe so. But while I have spent my entire life through one conspiracy after another, through one great calamity after another, stating that it's the end of life as we know it. I can't tell you how many times the rapture was supposed to happen, or how many times we were supposed to have nuclear Armageddon. I remember the year 1995, we were supposed to be in nuclear Armageddon. It was also predicted that it was supposed to happen somewhere in the 80s and again in the late 90s. And each one of the wars that we have been in was supposed to be the ushering in of the Great Tribulation. And just like the year 1999 and Y2K, we wake up the next day and we're still in the United States enjoying our freedoms. Now, can they infringe upon those freedoms? Well, they can if people keep electing certain individuals into government, where we see presidents that get involved in collusion and obstruction and criminal activity. We see a government that has former presidents that are up on federal charges that could sit in jail. We see a government that has high-ranking officials that are obviously paid off doing the bidding of some rich fat cats behind the scenes that stay hidden. Gary Gensler.
Scallywag.
But does that mean that we will end up as a third world country in a totalitarian regime? Well, I don't know. Sure, it's possible, but I remain a skeptic. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 2. And I'm going to say, show me. I live in Missouri. This is the show me state. So while everybody is shaking in their shoes, worried about their ability to buy Snickers bars and cigarettes in the future because of the CBDC, and because of things like WorldCoin and the orb, where you're supposed to scan your iris and they scan your face so you can have a world ID, and how the world is going to control all people. Now, keep in mind, we've got this thing here that's been bleeping. You hear it bleeping as I'm getting text messages. This is a Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. I also have an iPhone back there somewhere. And while we use those little smartphone devices, we unlock them with a face scan or our thumbprints that allow us to do transactions at the grocery store. But we're worried about CBDCs, FedNow, and WorldCoin. And while I'm talking, my little phone here is listening to every word I say, because I agreed to the terms of service of the little games that I downloaded, which say, if you want to play this game for free, you got to give us permission to turn on that microphone while you're playing the game. If you want to Snapchat, you got to give us permission to turn on your camera so we can see what you're doing. And we're going to collect that data using AI so we can sell that to advertisers and then push ads in your face based on what your interests are. I can't tell you how many times me and my wife are sitting at the kitchen table and we start talking about a particular product or service. And then an hour later, I get on my phone and there's an ad on Facebook while I'm scrolling to see what the latest gossip is. And that ad is exactly what I was talking about just an hour before. Yeah, that's already here. But does that make me want to put tape over my microphone and camera? No. If they want to push ads in my face about stuff I'm talking about, so be it. Am I afraid of totalitarian control coming because of these little smartphones that we have? No. But I'd love to know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts about the government taking control of our lives because of a CBDC? And do you think states' rights are going to go out the window if we keep electing federal officials that want to remove the ability for states to make certain decisions? Post in the comments on a scale of 1 to 10 what your fear level is. I'd like to know about it. Mine is at a 2. What is yours? And then on the next video, we're going to talk about money, CBDCs, and cash a little bit more because I'm going to make you think about something that is very interesting. How paper money really is worthless, and it's a condition of agreement of people that paper money has value. And then I'm going to talk about how electronic money is a figment of our imagination, and so is Bitcoin. We're going to talk about how the emperor is not wearing any clothes. Do you all know that story about the emperor who had everyone believing that he was wearing various outfits, but he was really naked, and someone finally stepped forward to state the emperor is not wearing any clothes? That's a little teaser to the next video that I'm going to talk about, which will open your eyes to the fact that you are living in a world where we have all been convinced to agree on something that only exists in our imagination. You don't want to miss that one. But for now, I would love it if you would like, comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Pro channel. And if you would like to help me defray the cost of this expensive little project, you may do so with the giving of a super thanks, and I thank you in advance. But please stay tuned for that next video, and I'll also be doing some technical analysis on your favorite altcoins and Bitcoin, and I'm taking requests, so stick with me for that. That's coming. And until then, all I can say is have a great time, have a good time, enjoy yourself, enjoy life, and don't get too wrapped up in these conspiracies that abound, because we're still able to go out and do pretty much everything that we want to do without being stopped. That's all I got for now. This is Carlton. I am out.